Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. We'll just wait for a couple more minutes and let everyone join in before we begin. Hello everyone, welcome again to today's webinar. As you all know, the marketing ecosystem is changing rapidly than ever before. And this, coupled with the privacy policies that are there all across the globe right now, makes it really challenging for us to target the right audience without actually finding ourselves amidst a challenging situation. So for IT companies and SaaS companies, it is imperative to find the right mix of marketing so as to target the right audience. And in today's webinar, that talks about planning high impact results and data-driven marketing strategies for 2020. This is what we'll talk about. As you can see on your screen, the agenda for today, we will just introduce ourselves and jump on to what the current state of IT and IT industry is right now and the challenges that they are facing in terms of marketing. Then we'll talk about how you can plan your strategy, including the best approach and tools that are there for marketing, and what KPIs and metrics you can define for your strategy. This webinar will run for 45 minutes, and questions you'll see on your screen towards the right. There's a tab for questions and polls. You can post your questions there, and if we run up any poll, you can simply click over there. Today's webinar is being hosted by Mr. Enoch Pakanati. He is the CEO of Smarketers, and he has had more than 14 years of experience. As he has worked with leading Fortune 50 and Fortune 100 clientele, and majorly has built up and scaled marketing and sales teams at IT organizations. He has also mentored and defined marketing strategies for startups, mid-size, and Fortune 500 companies. So I'll let him take over and continue with the webinar. I am Swapnil, and I work as a marketing strategist along with Mr. Pakanati.
Thanks a lot, Swapnil. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to join this webinar today. It's been we've been planning to do this for quite a long time, and finally we got a chance to set this up. Unfortunately, my health wasn't supporting me over the last couple of days, so although I didn't get a chance to fully prepare, I was able to put together some information that I hope would come across as useful to you all. So one of the things I wanted to discuss today, obviously what Swapnil has just walked you through, is we work majorly with technology firms, so the idea is we want to make sure that we're also passing on the knowledge. So before we get started with the actual webinar, I wanted to quickly introduce the Smarketers and what we do. So the Smarketers started in 2015. We have been we started, it's about 4 years now. We just finished 4 years. And our focus has majorly been working with technology firms, helping these companies, whether they're mid-sized startups or even Fortune companies, to implement inbound marketing and account-based marketing best practices. We have been listed as one of the top B2B marketing companies in India by Clutch in 2019. We've also been awarded by IT SMA, which is the industry-leading authority for IT marketing, IT services marketing. So we've been awarded the Marketing Excellence Gold Award in October this year. So we have been doing some, I would say, incredible work with a lot of the technology firms. We've been able to identify various challenges and the experience that we've been able to get from working with these. So before we get started with the actual conversation, maybe I just wanted to start off on a lighter note. So as you all know, there are a lot of field and door-to-door salesmen. I'm pretty sure we've all come across door-to-door salesmen in our life. So a kid was actually sitting outside the house, and there was this door-to-door salesman that was going from house to house. So he comes to this little boy and says, "Hey, is your mother home?" And the boy says, "Yeah, she is." And he says, "Can I talk to her?" And he says, "Yes, please go ahead." So he goes and starts knocking on the door. He keeps knocking for quite some time, and no one really comes out. So he comes back to the kid and says, "You said your mother's home, but I'm knocking on the door, but no one's coming out." And I'm sure you would have predicted the answer by now. So the kid says, "But this isn't my home." So yeah, so let's get started. I'm pretty sure most of the audience on this webinar are from the IT industry. Some of them having SaaS products, some of them providing services, some of them having solutions or partnered with other platform providers, providing implementation services and so on. But if you see the landscape, especially within India and Southeast Asia, has been growing tremendously in terms of export services. Although a lot of companies, see that the outsourcing market has become extremely competitive. There are too many providers in the market, but the statistics actually are showing that very differently, because the export market is going to grow by over close to $130 billion by 2025. So this means that the opportunity in this sector, in the IT sector, is extremely immense. However, one of the challenges that we see when we talk to a lot of the IT organizations is that they're still trying to do a lot of things in a very traditional manner. This is because they have been doing it for quite some time. They have been in the industry for quite some time. Most likely it has worked for them in the past. But then with the changing priorities of your target audiences, your customers, and obviously the influencing and the decision-making processes have changed in terms of hierarchy. What is now happening is a lot more prospects are proactively trying to look for companies that are able to provide solutions that they require, or able to solve the challenges that they're facing. And most of the times, the companies that are providing these solutions or services are not really geared up, or in a situation where they can actually come and cater to the needs of those prospects. So that's exactly where it's lacking, and also most of the times in many organizations, and I'm not just talking about IT or ITES or companies as such, but this happens across organizations. And the first thing that happens is misaligned teams. So a lot of companies where you have a marketing team and a sales team, a lot of time there's a lot of miscommunication or no communication at all. So people are usually trying to blame each other because the marketing says, I got you a lead. The sales says, this lead doesn't work for me. This is not a qualified lead. I don't have, the lead is not band qualified. So I would not consider this lead as a sales qualified lead, and marketing disagrees. So this happens. So this kind of back and forth happens a lot, and usually the ROI, especially if you're trying to tie ROI to marketing, it becomes really disconnected. So misalignment in teams is usually a very common thing that we notice even in very, very large organizations. And the next thing is setting very unrealistic goals. So organizations that possibly have about, say, 10% growth year on year most likely have seen some good sales that particular year. And what happens is they, come to the, certain believing that, hey, we can set some really aggressive goals for next year. So instead of, say, from 10%, you want to kind of increase it to, like, say, 12 or 15%, it goes directly to, maybe 50%. So those goals obviously put the sales and marketing teams under pressure, and obviously those would usually not be met. And the second thing is poor planning. Third thing, where the goals, the overall marketing plan, the sales plan, in terms of how you want to execute different campaigns, if they are not properly aligned, obviously poor planning will most likely lead to failure. And the next thing is not allocating budget. So usually goals and budget go together. So most of the times companies that are trying to allocate certain budgets usually do not follow the 5% rule. So the 5% rule says that you have to take 2 to 5% of your sales revenue as your marketing budget, and spend that budget. And few companies even spend close to 25 to 27% of their sales revenue as marketing budgets. So if they're not allocating the right budget, obviously you'll not be able to meet your sales or marketing goals. And the next thing is putting all the eggs in one basket. So the most of the times companies feel that, hey, we're doing cold calling, we're doing email marketing, or sending out emails, or most likely sending out some random LinkedIn messages. But this is working for us maybe, but this is where we'll focus. And most of the times they're not really exploring other channels. They're not really trying to experiment with other channels, which obviously could lead to better results. And the last and the most important thing is changing focus. So what happens is, you have a quarterly plan or a quarterly strategy. You've figured out what industries to focus on, what companies to go after. You've set up, revenue targets. The size of the companies to go after with certain employee sizes, and also define their buyer personas. And at the end of the quarter, most likely, someone from the team comes and says, hey, let's change the focus and let's start going after another set of prospects. So what happens then is the entire planning that you've done and the kind of setup that you've created during the previous 3 months kind of goes down the drain. And you'll most likely have to start from scratch again, which means you've lost a lot of time. And for that new plan to kind of take effect will again take a lot of time. So this clearly causes failure in most of the marketing or even sales campaigns. So one thing that HubSpot says, or HubSpot does a lot of research with different organizations, and from the recent research that they've conducted, almost every company said that they want to generate traffic and leads, from a marketing standpoint. And if you see same thing from a sales standpoint, companies want to close more deals. So the highest preference here is given to deals, especially traffic, leads, and closures. And the rest of the priorities are given to mostly, ROI of marketing. Like I said earlier, is a key challenge because they most companies want to see how marketing is performing. Are they actually delivering what sales wants, and are those actually converting? Similarly, all the other areas around budgets to website, training, hiring, and things like that also play a key role. And the same thing with sales as well. When the second highest priority is the efficiency of the sales funnel. So if you kind of look at it from a marketing and sales alignment standpoint, the traffic and leads versus closures and ROI of marketing versus efficiency of sales funnel are extremely, or I would say very closely related, because only when when marketing is able to create better outcomes is when the sales cycle obviously reduces, which increases the efficiency of the sales funnel. So both of these areas are extremely important, and that's when you have better leads and better conversions. So what do you do to make sure that you're able to actually achieve the targets that you're setting? So just it's basically the opposite of the earlier slide that we saw, which is to align your sales and marketing teams. Make sure that and we'll look at each of these as separate slides once again. Identifying what are your key goals. How do you want to make sure that sales and marketing is aligned? What is the best approach to take? How do you make sure that both these teams are actually accountable for the tasks and the areas that they are responsible for? How do you make sure that we are able to drive the results equally from both teams and make sure that you're saving on time, cost, and increasing the ROI? So that is extremely important when you're aligning your sales and marketing. Obviously, you need to set realistic goals. You will also have to use a multi-channel approach, which means that you'll have to leverage every possible channel out there that helps you to generate those sales qualified and marketing qualified leads. You will have to use good marketing technology stacks that will help you automate most of your activities. So whether it is research, whether it is driving intent data, whether it's analytics, whether it's social media engagement, drip campaigns, overall marketing automation itself, it's very important that you're able to do, use these technologies, technology tools and platforms to automate most of your tasks. And the next thing is taking data-driven decisions. So end of the day, you will have to make sure that you're looking at those reports, you're getting a consolidated report in one place, so you are able to assess the ROI of your campaigns and then make decisions based on that to see which channel, which campaign, which region, and so on and so forth are actually really working for you. And to make all of this happen is also a time taking process. And one of the most important challenges, or I would say, something that founders usually face with startups and mid-sized companies is cash flow, which means they obviously need to get month-on-month leads, closures, sales revenues needs to keep flowing in. Obviously, they need to make sure that they're driving new business every month from month one itself. So it's very, very important that you have try to keep a healthy sales funnel. At the same time, start focusing on a lot of these marketing activities, which obviously will take time, but then will help you generate a lot of sustainable outcomes and results in the long term. So how do you make sure, or how do you align your sales and marketing? So like I said earlier, make sure that you have common revenue goals. So your business goal has to become the goal for the sales and marketing teams. You have to make sure that you are driving, you're setting the tasks and objectives in such a way both for both sales and marketing. So for sales, your objectives could be, getting a certain number of sales qualified leads, increasing the percentage of conversions, reducing the sales cycle time, driving a lot more account-based focus where your sales is nurturing leads, driving a lot more conversations which are focused more on solution selling rather than just driving a straightforward pitch, creating specific plays so that you know exactly what are the different touch points, how can we engage with specific prospects, and so on. And based on the yearly or the annual goals, the sales and marketing have to work together to kind of reverse calculate and see, how many leads do we have to go after, and how many companies do we have to, or accounts do we have to reach out to, what channels do we use, and so on and so forth. So I'll come to that in a bit. And obviously, using the right tools, they will have to, and the company also has to invest in those tools. And end of the day, most or in almost every organization, the sales team gets the incentive or the reward for closing a sale, but the marketing team also needs to get an equal percentage because they are actually enabling that conversion and making sure that they are driving that content and overall alignment. So the incentivization needs to happen for both the sales and marketing teams as well. So according to Forrester, companies that have actually aligned their marketing and sales teams have seen an average of almost 32% annual revenue growth, which is far beyond a typical annual revenue growth for any IT organization. So, like I just said earlier, when you align your sales and marketing teams and you set up and you have a clear list of how you want to drive your leads to prospects and opportunities and obviously closures, you will have to create a framework. And this framework may not be standard for every organization. However, you will have to, based on the kind of goals you have, based on the kind of companies you're going after, based on the overall target regions and the buyer personas that you've identified, you will then have to create a matrix that will cater to at every touch point to your prospects, at the same time is engaging and driving the outcomes from your both sales and marketing teams. So content in this scenario, especially when you are aligning content and campaigns, nurturing, driving behavioral insights of prospects, understanding what prospects are doing across channels. A lot of these things become very important even for sales, because that's when marketing can actually drive a lot of personalization. They can create a lot more personalized content, a lot more thought leadership driven content. They'll be able to identify what prospects are doing across social channels, pass on that intelligence to sales. So sales can then take more intelligent approaches to reach out to these prospects and engage them in the channels where they're active, and so on and so forth. So this structure, or the matrix structure, or the framework that you define, then becomes a foundation or the Bible for your sales and marketing teams to follow that, and obviously tie all the results and outcomes to each of the touch points that they're doing. So here is how alignment looks like. So here this slide talks mostly about the approach that we would suggest. So earlier we spoke about sales and marketing alignment. Now this alignment, if you look at it from a 10,000 feet view, we need to also kind of consider the approach that we will take. So a lot of salespeople, when I speak with them, or organizations when I speak with them, they say, we use a very consultative approach. Our sales team does a lot of research and outreach. We're trying to take an ABM type of an approach, and so on. And when I ask them about marketing, they usually say, no, we're not really doing a lot of marketing or inbound marketing as such. And most of the times, account-based marketing is a very vaguely used word. Kind of sorry to say that, but a lot of organizations define ABM very differently, and for a few, it's just sending emails, or for a few people, it's just doing ads, or for a few, it's just doing like a 1:1 very personalized campaign is what is called an ABM campaign. So different organizations define ABM very differently. However, what happens is in account-based marketing, a lot of companies, we have like three typical approaches, which is the 1:1, one to few, and one to many. And in each of these approaches, we are picking specific sets of accounts that we want to really go after. Now, the challenge is, say you're going after, say you're doing a 1:1 approach, and you've done like about taken about 20 or 30 accounts that you want to go after, and these possibly could be Fortune 500 companies with longer sales cycles, and but giving you a much larger opportunity or a deal. The challenge here is that you're actually missing out on a huge chunk of audience that are possibly looking for a solution like yours or a service like yours, and then are searching for it on Google and finding companies that are providing relevant information. So what we usually suggest most of the IT organizations, even whether they would just want to do an inbound approach or if they just want to do an account-based marketing approach, is to usually take a combined integrated approach to ABM and inbound marketing, because a lot of the areas that we work on ABM or inbound can be combined together to create a more integrated and a more effective method for generating those leads and opportunities. So in most of the cases, even for inbound or ABM, we still have to generate a lot of content that is personalized, targeting either those specific accounts or specific segments. We'll still have to use a multi-channel approach, which requires creating a lot of content across different types, whether it's videos, ebooks, white papers, doing webinars or sending direct mails, targeting your prospects at events, and doing a lot of targeted ads, whether they're IP-based targeting or retargeting, and LinkedIn targeted sponsored content ads, and things like that, doing warm calls and so on. So a lot of those the content pieces that we create can also be used in conjunction with inbound marketing, where we're able to then make them relevant for that industry, build a lot more use cases, create, optimize the website for SEO, making them rank for better long tail keywords that your B2B target prospects are possibly searching for, and then drive them through the website and convert them from there as well. So this is really important in terms of the approach, and this is what we usually recommend to any organization that actually wants to seriously start off with an integrated marketing approach. So there are a lot of tools, especially if you consider account-based marketing or inbound marketing. There are thousands. Almost at every week there's a new tool out there in the market that is claiming to do something that the other tool is not doing, and there are too many options to choose from. However, in our experience, we've seen that you can choose one platform per specific area that you're focusing on. Say, for example, we're looking at content. A lot of companies use WordPress as their default platform to either build their website or host their blogs. From a social media marketing standpoint, you can use Hootsuite. If you're using it for your own internal use, you can use Buffer or Hootsuite or any of the other tools. Again, you can get a free account where you can just post up to 3 platforms for free, and we can use lead capture, where lead lander, lead pages, and so on, they actually identify who's coming to your website and understand and give you intelligence on targeting those people. So each of these tools will be able to actually help you to identify and target those different users. And at the same time run all your marketing programs and inbound marketing campaigns in parallel. So a lot of companies find HubSpot and Eloqua or Marketo, and so on to be extremely expensive. But again, we suggest, depending on the client's budget, we then suggest or recommend other marketing automation platforms that are equally efficient, or or tools that are most likely going to fit into the requirement that the particular company has, and obviously fit into their budget as well. So depending on your overall needs, your budgets, and your the way you want to completely organize your marketing, inbound marketing or ABM program, you will then have to choose your marketing tools very wisely. A lot of tools give you free subscriptions so that you can, maybe if you're just using it for one website, you can use them for free. But if you're an agency, or if you're a company that has multiple websites and needs to run campaigns on a larger scale, obviously, you can choose from some of the subscription stacks. So let's come to the most important part of the conversation here, which is setting up your goals. So how do you actually go ahead and set up your goals? A lot of times, especially on my client meetings, or whenever I talk to a few people, I get answers like, "Hey, we want to generate more sales. We want more leads every month." So the next immediate question would be, do you know how many leads? Because like I mentioned earlier, if you have a specific business goal, if you want to generate $10 million in revenue in a given financial year, that obviously will translate back into how much of revenue are you going to generate from your existing accounts, and how much of revenue are you going to generate from your net new accounts. And if you're going to generate a certain amount of revenue from your net new account, say, let's take, for example, 60% from your existing and 40% from your net new accounts, how much of that 40% has to be from larger ticket sizes, and how much of that can be from smaller ticket sizes? How much of that should be like an revenue, more like a MRR, or a monthly recurring revenue, or a yearly recurring revenue per client, and how much of it can be one time? So based on these, we will then have to do a lot of reverse calculations to see, look at the sales cycles. We'll have to look at what kind of, depending on those goals, we'll have to see what kind of marketing campaigns do we have to do, or what kind of sales campaigns do we have to do, what budget should be allocated, what is the team required, how much of SQLs will be needed, how many MQLs would be needed, how much traffic do we have to drive to the website to make sure that those those prospects are actually converting, what kind of quarterly benchmarks do we set and measure against, and how do we experiment with different platforms and different methods of campaigns, which campaigns do we, so basically the idea is setting goals is extremely important, because that is the only way we'll be able to then see what kind of metrics do we have to set. Again, you will have to define specific metrics for your marketing teams. You'll have to define specific goals for your sales teams. You will then also have to look at how many opportunities you'll be able to close in a given year from your existing funnel, plus the new funnel that you're going to create, and and obviously you have to measure those KPIs from a time to time basis. So the next thing is, once you've set your goals, obviously you'll have to measure your KPIs as well. So your KPIs would most likely be both for your sales as well as your marketing teams. So when you're setting up your marketing KPIs or sales KPIs, you're looking at deliverables. Deliverables will translate to content, whether it's building a website, or doing SEO, or creating blogs, ebooks, and all the different content collateral. Whether you're providing any other in terms of pushing out reports and things like that. So basically, the idea is: are you delivering the things that you're supposed to deliver, and are you delivering on time? So that is another key metric, because if you're not doing things on time, which automatically means that your operational excellence is going down. And uniqueness of uniqueness of content. So one of the things that we also measure is how well or how much of thought leadership are you able to drive. So that is another area that needs to be measured as well. And from a performance standpoint, obviously the conversions always take the highest. SQLs and conversions take the highest metric, and this is because conversions obviously means order booking and revenue realized. So your SQLs from an MQL to an SQL to an actual conversion always takes a higher priority. And the same can be applied when measuring the KPIs of your marketing and sales teams as well. And the same targets can be shared across both. While conversion targets are mostly associated with sales, MQLs, SQLs, traffic and engagement targets can definitely be allocated both to the marketing and sales teams. So, so having said that, in conclusion, while each of these slides, I can actually take up a different webinar on each of the areas that I've spoken about in a lot more detail, because ABM in itself is a vast subject. Inbound marketing itself is a vast subject. KPIs are a vast subject. What we wanted to do was to kind of set an initial tone in terms of what are the major areas that you can focus on, and how you can do it. And in terms of integrated, in terms of this particular webinar, we just wanted to achieve how we'll be able to drive focused approach for IT firms to follow a more of an integrated ABM strategy, ABM and inbound strategy, whether they're doing it in-house, whether they're outsourcing. End of the day, it has to be able to generate the results, and it also has to enable your marketing and sales teams to be able to drive the outcome. So basically, you'll have to set clear goals. You will have to make sure that you're also supporting your sales and marketing teams with the required budgets. While you can still do a lot of marketing and ABM campaigns also with a very, very limited budget. You need to understand which campaign is the most effective, and and then take it from there. But either inbound marketing or account-based marketing, both of these are, especially when you do it completely organic, not including paid. So if you're doing it organically, it will take time. It requires a lot of patience, and obviously you will see results, but it will require a lot of patience. And that's only and that's when we recommend doing ads and boosting those outcomes. So the next and the most important thing is, or the final thing is, you'll have to take a lot of data-driven decisions. Almost every tool these days is tied into a lot of really good dashboards and reports. So you will have to make sure that you have a consolidated view of what your marketing team is doing versus what your sales team is doing, and get a complete picture as to how marketing-led efforts have driven sales outcomes. And that is when you will be actually able to measure your overall ROI on your spend, and then be able to see and make decisions as to whether your overall spend and overall budgets have actually given out any results. So having said that, we are at the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for taking time again and joining this webinar. I'll be happy to take any questions you have. Please feel free to share them in the questions window. So I have a question from Nikhil. So he's saying, can you suggest some of the tools to measure our marketing and sales efforts? So there are, so specifically from an effort standpoint, again, you'll have to define what those efforts are, because a marketing might be creating content, marketing might be doing ads, they might be running different marketing automation like drip campaigns and so on. And your sales might be doing calls, they will be attending events, and they'll possibly be doing a lot, sending out emails as well. So the tools that if you're using tools like HubSpot or Pardot or Marketo or any other Acton and some of those tools, they will give you you have two different options where you can choose toggle between marketing and sales, and you can also create custom dashboards where you can see the specific marketing specific campaigns that you've done versus the activity done from the salesperson for that particular campaign or the outcome of that activity. So so you can actually measure through those tools. But again, if you're using multiple tools, the best way to do it at this point of time is get a consolidated report from all these tools and then measure against it and see. So if you've received a lot of MQLs and you've done nurturing, and those after nurturing you figured out that one of those prospects is actually interested, and then you pass that lead along to sales, and sales converts that lead. Obviously, and once it's tracked in your CRM, which also is tied into your marketing automation, you can quickly be able to see what is the effort versus result. So I hope I was able to answer that question. So I have a question from Surya about what is the best channel by far to get leads. I have another question from Vikram. So to answer Surya's question, not sure. Yeah, Surya. Okay. So I guess Surya is from a technology services company. So he's asking a question about what is the best channel by far to get leads. If you are going after, now the thing is, it depends on the region or the geography that you're going after and the industry you're going after. For example, if you're going after the technology industry in the US, then email and LinkedIn by far have been the best channels. And obviously, your content has to play a very important role here, because unless you're able to establish the credibility and in thought leadership in terms of these challenges you're able to solve for that industry, only then anyone would like to respond back. And typical or generic approaches in terms of sending simple emails will not work. Most likely it will end up in spam, or you get marked as spam. So we, like I said earlier, using that integrated approach of inbound and ABM and using a multi-channel approach is the best way to do it. And then you'll have to measure and see which channel is working best for you for that region or for that industry, and then intensify your efforts for that industry. The next question is from Vikram. Could you talk about specific challenges that the Indian IT/ITeS industry is facing? Yeah, so like I earlier mentioned, some of the things especially with Indian companies is that in the information technology services space. If you are doing very generic work, like say for example, there are a lot of companies that do web development, mobile application development, or some product like end-to-end product development and so on. And a lot of companies are now claiming to do provide services around Angular and React and Python and so on and so forth, and using very specific tech stacks. Even a lot of RPA companies have started positioning RPA as one of their service offerings. So what happens then is, and everyone wants to focus in the US market. So and that's when competition happens, and a lot more companies are receiving the same information from 100 other companies, and obviously they would not be interested in talking unless someone is bringing a lot of value. And that's when I said, when you create, we've actually worked with companies like that, and we've helped some of these companies to change their thought process in terms of not positioning themselves as a services organization, but more of a solution-driven organization, focusing on specific industries. So we, based on those solutions, we then built out a lot of use cases. We helped them position a lot of content around that area, and then we built reports and specific ebooks for those industries, and then used the similar multi-channel approach. We did not do any ads, but it took us about 6 to 9 months. But it helped us start generate a lot of business from those target industries. So if you're asking me about the specific challenges, I would say if you're working with companies in India, it's obviously you'll have to play the price game, and obviously also you'll have to compete with several other companies doing the same thing. And if it is US, you'll have to be as personalized as you can be, and try to solve a particular industry challenge or a challenge within a function of an industry. So that's what I would suggest. Imtiaz has a question. So deciding the marketing message for paid campaign can be exhaustive, as it needs to be updated frequently. What is the best strategy to generate content for paid campaigns? So this is a very interesting question. So automatic content generation for best strategy, I would say you'll have to have someone constantly monitor and see how the content or the keywords that you're targeting are performing. You'll also have to see how what your target audience is actually searching for. Say for example, in the B2B or the technology space, most of the times a prospect is not really searching for technology company providing specific services. Most likely they're searching for information that will help answer specific challenges, or information that will help them learn more about a specific technology, and so on and so forth. So usually in those cases, they come across target companies that have actually put out good content, or are ranking for such keywords on their website, and they end up converting from there. So and so, like I said, if you're going after B2B audiences, you will have to make sure that you have a combination of those long tail, short tail type of keywords, and also focus on answering specific queries, and your content. Again, the ad content, which is obviously short, 130, 140 characters, versus also the content that is on your landing page is extremely important. And you'll have to, like I said, you'll have to do an A/B testing. You'll have to try 2 or 3 different types of ads and 2 to 3 different types of messaging and tags and keywords and keyword lists and groups, and also try with 2 to 3 different types of landing pages and content type, and see which one is helping you generate more leads from for the same budget. And then once you're able to determine that, then focus on driving the campaign or intensify that campaign. Jennifer has a question. So what in your experience has worked best to build credibility and thought leadership for IT companies in the US? So building thought leadership has to come from within the organization. So if you're relying on external research or external content or information from external sources, usually would not work. So your product leaders, your subject matter experts, people who are working directly with your clients or building products are the best people to give you a lot of insights. Now your team has to then capture that information and translate that information into content that is engaging, that is readable, that can be easily absorbed, and is also and can also rank very well. So from that standpoint, you're being unique, and you're able to also drive the point home. Now, for IT companies in the US, again, for some of the companies that we have been working with, we see that your local and regional preferences for language are also very important. So if you're working with in the southern company, then and a company that is also only focused on targeting customers in the south, then you'll also have to keep your language and the way you're creating content to kind of fit that audience. So depending on who you're which prospects you're targeting and the kind of people you're going after or the personas that you're going after, your thought leadership has to be driven. Thought leadership also has to be driven from the CEO majorly, because the CEO is obviously connected to a lot of people, relevant people, plus a lot of his own customers and connections. So if they personally post specific information from their social channels, that will reach the right people. That is also a very effective strategy to start pulling in a lot of good leads and business. So Surya has another question. Do people in USA, they are biased in responding to emails or LinkedIn sent from USA sales agent than an Indian sales agent? Now it depends also on the English. A lot of times what happens is I receive LinkedIn connect request, and as soon as I receive the request, the next immediate within a few seconds I get a message that has a lot of grammatical errors and highly impersonal email that positions a bunch of services or solutions from that company, which obviously will frustrate any prospect, whether they're in India or the US. It's very, very important that you personalize your outreach as much as possible. If you're writing an email, even if you're not going into the level of personalization where you're talking about specific challenges for the company, maybe you can make it more specific to the industry or the segment you're going after, and keep it very, very short and simple, and talk about the credibility and the value you can bring to them. Similarly, on LinkedIn has to be more conversational. It cannot be pushy in any way. You have to start showing a lot more, push a lot more credibility. So maybe you can share a case study or an ebook or a blog, start a conversation, and then kind of identify if they have certain requirements that you'll be able to help them with. So, so if that happens, you will definitely see a lot better results than if you're sending generic emails or the same email message copy pasted onto LinkedIn, which usually will not work. So we have 3 more minutes, and so we will definitely share this slide deck with you, and we'll remove any we may have to remove the client names or slides, whatever. I mean, we'll have to make some modifications, but we'll definitely send across this slide deck, and we'll also send you a replay of the webinar as well. And once again, thank you everyone for taking out an hour of your time during mid of the week and engaging questions as well. We will be in touch, and we will also keep you posted on our upcoming webinars. We'll most likely be doing about 1 to 2 webinars every month starting January. So thank you once again, and wish you all wonderful holidays and a very happy new year as well. Thank you.